Okay, we're on the Bucky weekend call for February 4th or 5th, depending on which continent you're on. And we're continuing with our conversation with Grunch of the Giants and detailed analysis. So, Anne, how are you feeling today? And what do you anticipate to get out of this call? What are your expectations and intentions for the call?
Okay, actually, for me, how I feel today, not about the call, but a little feelings a bit mixed, because this afternoon, there's a lady who's a mom, right, and she is coming to our school using our space, which we have happily offered her. It's just one of those things where she's okay. She homeschooled her own two kids, and I think they finished the IGCSE exam, which is for 16-year-olds when they're about 11 years old. Actually finished they got 5 A's, so for me, okay, I like what she's doing, but the message that goes out to parents scares me. Yeah, because I do not agree with kids finishing the exam so young. So that's one. More because there's a lot of pressure trying to finish an exam when you lack the maturity to handle a lot of the content. And there's this pressure in Asia for people to do well. Yeah. For her, what she did was she did a lot of world schooling. She takes her children everywhere. So it is actually the experiences that are anchoring the kids' learning, but that's not what parents see. They see the child at 11 years old finishing IGCSE. So today, and I get about 10 minutes to speak, before she goes on, and I have to do it in such a way where it supports what she has done, at the same time, caution what it means. Okay, so even though the kids can get to college right now, she's not putting them in, which is great. But that's not what most Asian parents will do, and they can't go in. So what do you do? And why rush it? I just don't get it, So it's a little. I've kind of figured out what I want to say, but I hope that it gets through. Yeah, because I used to teach in the colleges, right? And when the kid is 15 years old versus another one who's 16 or 17, huge difference in maturity, especially with whether you don't know who is going to mature and be ready for that kind of socialization at 15, and nobody can guarantee. You see, that's my issue there. And so they leave him out. He's considered a pest. He's just too immature. And yeah, it's and that's not the only one I've seen, and safety issues is another one. So anyway, I'm gonna have to get that information across at the same time. And she's continued to world school her kids, after now, which is great. And that's what they have to hear, and not the fact that you can get 5 A's when you're 11 years old. Yeah. So a little mixed with that. Thank you very much, Steve, for making this happen week after week. And yes, we do miss Kelly. Any news from him would be great. And so, yeah. Hi, Manu. And yeah, Susan, how do you feel, and what do you hope to get out today?
I feel very grateful to have time with all of you. And I wanted to just let you know I'm going to have to ring off a little early because I've got to catch a flight. But I just kind of took the day to just be at home and put my home in, and just kind of like straighten up and unwind a little bit, and put away some books. And I have a couple new books that have Bucky material that at some point I'll actually get to look at. Even though Bucky's not here, other people continue to put together things that are inspired by his writing and his accomplishments. And I really, there's so much more I have to get out of Bucky. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get even some more wisdom out of Grunch of Giants. And by wisdom, the wisdom was already there. It's just opening my perception enough to take some more of it in. Manu, how are you feeling, and what would you like to get out of today?
Not really. Hi. Good morning.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't sleep that well. Anyway, yeah. Otherwise, I feel grateful. I feel happy to be here. And then I'm open. And then I'm also willing to give. So that's what I expect. Steve, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Wow. I'm excited to be here too. I'm a little bit, I really enjoyed hearing from Anne and from Susan and from you this morning. I feel like you guys are my friends, and the only other people I really like to hang out with are musicians. And I had a rehearsal this morning. I'm doing a blues. I'm hosting a blues thing, and I'm going to do a couple tunes. "Let Me Love You" by Rod Stewart. It comes from the Jeff Beck album Truth, which was his Jeff Beck introduced Rod Stewart, and I get to sing that song like Rod Stewart. So I'm real excited. And you hear a little bit of hoarseness here because Rod Stewart does not sing. He like crack tones the whole way, But I sat there with those guys after we did our little rehearsal. We went to lunch, and they were sitting talking about music, this and music that. And I thought, it's nothing like the topology of reality, and this whole concept of, I was looking through some notes as I've learned so much from Mano and his persistence in hanging on to the math and to the metaphysics of Bucky stuff. But the very idea that a plane is infinite and can be defined finitely on the plane, and just different concepts about what a topology is, what a topography is. And I think understanding the underlying metaphysics of a concept opens up potential that if I'm only thinking about like cars, I'm going to think about cars. Well, Bucky opened up cars with his Dymaxion car, and if I'm thinking about houses, I'm going to think about houses. But then Bucky opened up houses with his Dymaxion home. And my plan is, if you guys are interested, we'll do that today, and it'll put a new twist on it. Like Bucky's Dymaxion house was not built on a foundation; it was built on a flagpole. I mean, so you just break out of that freaking box. And I also do want to comment too, Anne. You're so right about how the female brain matures around 18 or 19. A male brain doesn't mature until 28 years old. And when we take these little kids, but you know why? Because there are 2 testosterone flushes on the brain. 6 months into a male brain, there's a testosterone flush, kills half the brain. And then later on, 14, another testosterone flush that kills half the brain. Male brains are just not like female brains. They're not whole brains, right? Of course, we're not supposed to be whole. That's why we have ladies in our lives. But and there's this male and female, this balance of reality. And so when I hear kids that are performing well, but suddenly they get cast out without having that experience, without having the maturity, the physiological maturity, it's wonderful to be able to be smart and answer quizzes on tests, but to integrate that learning with actual hormones and life experience, that's tough. And that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, I just noticed. So I'm really honored to be here. Joe has contacted me, said he'll be here a little bit late. The Butlers said they wouldn't be here today. They declined. We had a couple other people said anticipated, but from all I see, Joe will be arriving and maybe somebody else, but that's all I know about. Okay, so with that, we will begin our examination. Whoops, wrong slide. We've been looking at Grunch of the Giants, and we read through this introduction, this foreword, really rapidly, and we were reading off one of the chapters, and then we had our Christmas break, and I came back and reread the foreword again. And I'm going, what Bucky was trying to do was expand our awareness of possibility, I think. So he goes into, and he talks about here in the Philadelphia archives, in his Philadelphia articles, archives. There are over 40,000 articles published during the last 60 years, which successively document Bucky's progressive completions of the whole intercomplementary family of scheduled artifacts. This idea of livingery items include the following, and he was really big on this idea that we have weaponry, and if we just invested our resources into livingery, things would be fine. So we talked a little bit more intensively over the last couple of weeks, reviewing this forward, about tensegrity and what it is. But what we didn't do is the Dymaxion house. And after we finished last week, you know, I thought, what is that Dymaxion house all about over here? And then last week we talked about the bathroom, where he made a prefabricated fiberglass bathroom so he could just drop it into a house. His whole idea was efficiency. We talked a little bit about synergetics, and then we also talked about, and it's too bad this isn't all on one page, we talked about the Dymaxion world map in the last few weeks. We've talked about that. We talked about the world game. I think we went through and talked about, maybe we didn't. What I did last week was I spent about 2 hours after the call and started doing some research on stuff. And now I'm very confused as to what was covered and what wasn't. My outlines are not very explicit in terms of what they are. Then we talked about these charts, and we spent a lot of time on these charts last week. And in the email that I sent out, there's a link there to all the charts. And that was profound, looking how Bucky looked at things from such a macro point of view. Population disbursement on the spaceship Earth, resources available on the spaceship Earth, the number of hours or the number of weeks, I guess, that a person spent in their life doing certain things like eating food and getting educated and working and things like that over different dispensations. I mean, Bucky's concept was really macro, trying to get us to look in terms of the system. And then the Dymaxion Omni Transport. So for land, air, and water, his Omni Transport. So I thought what we'd do is go back and maybe take a look at the Dymaxion house. And maybe you guys, depending on how interested you are. So I did a couple of things here. Here is his Dymaxion car. This is a Google search or YouTube search for Dymaxion car. And this shows his car roaming around. This is another from 1933. These are actual films from that era. This is a weird car that somebody invented based on the Dymaxion theme. But this is an actual walkthrough of a restored Dymaxion car. And I thought these would be kind of helpful. This one is 3 minutes long. And this guy here is 4 minutes long. Let's look at this one and get these guys' reaction if this is okay with you guys. Here we go. Dymaxion car.
Dymaxion. American architect Buckminster Fuller's leitmotif of extreme efficiency, combining the words dynamic, maximum, and tension. When Fuller turned to the messy business of revolutionizing the automobile, the result was this: the 1933 Dymaxion #1.
Now, these are all restored vehicles.
Write it out. I recently got to meet and drive Fuller's amazing Road Zeppelin.
I think we could probably speed it up a little bit.
It's smaller, more compact. This is not the car I was expecting.
It's a 1933 Dymaxion replica. Dymaxion was a car built by Buckminster Fuller in 1933 and 1934. They built 3 of them. So it's a front-wheel drive, rear steer, mid-engine car that he was trying to develop all these neat new ideas and have the automotive car of the future.
At one point, Mr. Fuller claimed the car could go 120 miles an hour. That would be difficult with the original canvas top.
Why did you decide to go with the canvas sign?
Well, I'm making the assumption that Bucky probably did that because it was fast and easy.
Yeah.
You know, and also it would let, you know, you could fold it back a little bit if you wanted to take it all the way off. So
Bucky teamed up with maritime and aviation architect William Starling Burgess to make the Dymaxion and revolutionize the auto industry.
This is like the full embrace of aerodynamics and aviation. This was the romance of aviation brought to the ground, right?
I mean, people see it today and they're like, wow. And I'm sure they said that back in 1933 and 34 when they saw it come out.
It's a work of art, no doubt, a piece of sculpture, an evocative example of mid-century streamlining, but how does it drive?
The biggest problem is it doesn't like a crown in the road in the back. Because if there's a crown in the road in the back, then the wheel wants to walk one way and the other way and it starts to wobble.
But it just starts to drift offline
one way or the other. Left and right.
Tell you, Bucky, I think that's a design flaw, right?
Right.
Didn't see that car behind me. Okay, yeah, I'm good. Well, first things first, the rear view mirror is pretty bad. Well, it's very nautical. The tiller feel is very pronounced. And also the sort of the space is very boat-like. Here, this is like you're on the storm bridge of some boat. And I can see why you would. And you know, when you point it in one direction or the other, it continues to go in that direction until you stop it.
The last part of the Dymaxion formula is tension. And yes, the driving experience is full of tension. Even under 40 miles per hour, the stability and vehicle control was bad, very bad. And it felt exactly like taxiing a tail-dragging plane down a country road. But in one respect, Bucky was absolutely right. The future was going to be one scary ride.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. I have a PDF file that I
every so often in the comments section of this series.
Come on, let's stop.
I will get a suggestion from one or two of you guys of a car that could be featured.
Okay, really good. Then I've got in this PDF file that I put together that I'm going to send out. I show, here we go. When Bucky designed his car, he designed it with this context, in the context of what was being developed at the time. So in the this is a little bit on his car down here, but let me get back up here. My cursor isn't working as well as I'd like it to work. So these are the kind of cars that were being developed around that time. Here's 1927 Buick. Here's a 1904. This is early. He did his car in 1933. So here were the concepts cars at the time. And then he was really literally trying to combine this idea of airplane flight and airplane manufacturing with the idea of moving a family and creating life. So there's a little bit on the Dymaxion car. We could watch a couple more videos. I've got links to them here, though, so if you're interested, you can watch more of them. Any comments or questions on this? No comments or questions?
Just cool.
Okay, cool. Some of the other ones, after when he developed the one for the World's Fair, I guess, for a World's Fair, and on their way away from the World's Fair or there, they got in a wreck, and somebody actually died in the wreck. The car was not that safe. It wasn't. He wasn't designing it for safety. He was just designing it to conceptualize the idea of how to bridge this air feature, the aerodynamics with traveling. And that's, I think, over here on the Grunch of the Giants, we see this thing where he says the Omni Transport for land, air, water, surface, and marine travel. The first full-scale working prototype stage of which was the Dymaxion car, produced to test the crosswind ground taxiing behaviors of an Omni streamlined, ultimately to be twin orientable jet stilts flown. So he was way ahead of his time. Wingless flying device, which could take off and land like an eagle or a duck without any prepared landing fields, similar in principle to the 40 years later descent and takeoff of the multi-jet system, the Apollo moon flight landing. He designed it in 1927, built a prototype in 33. And I think basically the Dymaxion car was that prototype. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do. Any idea whether he took this Dymaxion car and this whole idea forward? Because I mean, he passed in 1980 something, right? So that's about 50 years later. So did he revisit, the this invention of his?
I don't think he did. Manu, Susan, do you recall?
I don't know. I'm going to run and grab a couple of books and see if I have something.
Okay. My thing was that, as he states here in Grunch of the Giants, his idea was to conceptualize and move ahead, hoping that somebody else would come back and grab the ideas and make them work. Like the geodesic dome, a lot of people grabbed onto that idea and made it happen.
Mm.
I think you are hitting the nail on the head there, Steve.
Yeah.
In the principles that I think that have to be followed. I always take the metaphor of a foreman who has a toolbox.
Yeah.
And Bucky was in the business of diversifying and enriching the toolbox and categorizing it and storing it in such a way that whenever there is a situation that requires one of those, you can go and pull it. And that was, to me, the concept. And that was what made the empowerment, is that there are many, many things. And refining takes a lot of iterations.
Yeah.
So if one of those things catches interest, then it will be refined. I mean, nobody remembered the first flight of the Wright brothers. It wasn't far away. It was clumsy.
Yeah.
In comparison to the jets that we have today and the comfort that you experience on board an aircraft.
Cool. Yeah. So he was about busy conceptualizing, presenting ideas, and moving ahead. I think back when we read about his, he designed a mill in Georgia or something with South Carolina University or something. And he had it all set up in a dome, and it was all set up so that instead of having to use power to run it, gravity ran the mill. So they'd get the rough resources up on the top, and then gradually as they moved down, they'd end up with stuff. And he thought he was revolutionizing the milling thing, but nobody caught on to it. They were stuck with their old thing. It was profitable doing it the old way, and nobody took the idea. So, but that's okay. He realized, and when he did these Dymaxion houses, he figured he could build a house for like 20% of what they were costing out there. And yet he found out that when they got approved and everybody was excited about it, nobody would fund it. And rather than waiting to develop and waiting for the industry to catch up, he decided, man, I'm just going to move ahead. And that's basically what he did. Were you able to find anything, Susan?
I've got a couple things. This one is Buckminster Fuller, Poet of Geometry. And there's a picture of the Dymaxion car on the back. I was looking, this is under Dymaxion Mobile Dormitories. So I'll see if I get anything on the car here.
Cool.
But
well,
I think it's very, very interesting because by the time he passed in 1980 something, technology had moved so far forward, right? So it'll be because I'm looking at what is in the Grunch of Giants, right? So he was up to this point, the twin hull rowing sailing device he invented in 1938, but prototyped in 1954. And then the triangular geodesic framing of the ocean sailing hulls was invented in 1948, and I think they constructed it in 1979. So
what page are you on are you in Grunch of the Giants right now?
Yeah, page 4.
Page 4, yeah. And I don't know but go ahead, keep talking, whatever your idea was.
Yeah, my point is that because a lot of his inventions were very early on, and you know, he didn't state anything else after that. And you know, like during the 50s, maybe 60s and 70s, when there's so much you know, things being invented and discovered and so on and so forth. So yeah, and so anything else that came out from him, give me a minute, I have to go and collect food. Yeah, just a minute. I'll be back.
Okay, really good. Did you find anything now, Susan?
This one is saying, so it's called On the Move. And it said initially Bucky wanted to design a vehicle that could not only be driven like a car, but could also float and travel by water. Oh, and if you just inflated the stored wings, you could simply fly wherever you were going. It had 2 front wheels and only 1 back wheel. It would steer from the rear wheel like a fish swims. These designs were created before coining the term Dymaxion, and were then simply called 4D transport. After closing his magazine shelter, Bucky decided to pursue actually building a prototype of his vehicle. He knew that at the time, his air, land, sea vehicle wasn't practical, so he went about building a new kind of automobile. Instead of going out and trying to get funding, building materials, and lecturing, Bucky went straight to work building a full-scale working model. He already had a little help from a few loyal believers. Then he hired well-known yacht and seaplane builder Starling Burgess. The day that Franklin D. Roosevelt declared the country broke from the Depression, Bucky started building his Dymaxion car.
Wonderful. What book is that?
Oh, and he said a Rolls-Royce factory that had recently opened in the United States was forced to close due to the Depression. Bucky hired mechanics from this factory to work on his newest enterprise. The new design still had 3 wheels, and the frame was made of wood and clad in aluminum. It had front-wheel drive and was steered by the rear wheel as a boat is steered by a rudder. The car could turn 360 degrees on itself, essentially circling in place. Henry Ford gave Bucky a V8 engine at a huge discount. The Dymaxion car could go up to 120 miles per hour, which was much faster than the Ford models of the time because it was much lighter and more aerodynamic. It was therefore much more fuel efficient as well. The car could hold up to 11 passengers.
Yeah.
And we just saw that it, crashed and killed somebody, but.
And what book is that? Do you want to hold that up so everybody can see, just in case they want to get access to it? Very good. Buckminster Fuller, Poet of Geometry.
Yeah, and it was just, so the last time we were in exactly this section of Grunch of Giants, I was totally taken in by trying to figure out the darn fog gun. So I figured, of all the things, here we are. I mean, my heart is just breaking for what's going on where you are. I was listening to a radio announcer say that within 5 years, the Great Salt Lake will be dried up, and the heavy metals that will be rolling around in the air will make it not a safe place to live.
Yeah, we're in a big hoop-de-doo about it in Salt Lake City. Major news in our city.
So fog gun would be a great idea if you could cut down your water use per shower by a remarkable amount.
I'm going to talk about the fog gun a little bit later, I think. We'll bring it up again and come back to the fog gun because it's a great idea about water conservation. In fact, while we're here, I think, do you have any statistics on, you could, and a human being can have an entire bath with 1 cup of water or something?
Well, that's what he said. So when I went to look at what's commercially available, because I did this, I think it was either late November, early December.
Yeah.
There was one shower head out there on the market that was using his principle of the aerosolized mist.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how well it does it because it doesn't have a compressor. Yeah. But it was about using 40 or 50% of the average amount of water as a normal shower. Right. And the reviews were getting reasonable.
Yeah. I found a better example of actually a modern shower. I just did a quick, I'm doing a quick Google here right now based on what you're saying. And these are kind of examples of the concept. If the fog gun was created, I heard, and I don't remember if it's going to be in Grunch or not, because Bucky remembers standing in, he was in the Navy, and he remembers standing on the deck and getting the seawater in his face, the humidity in his face, and how he could be really dirty and come out there in a few minutes, he'd be clean. He thought, why not make a fog gun? You know, if the ocean can do it, why not make a machine that does it?
I will have to double check back. I had it on my Amazon account. I think it was called the Nebula, the shower that.
Well, let's just take a look here. Let me go to, I think I have, we'll go to Amazon and just do the Nebula, because I think you're right. I saw one here too. So in fact, let's put in fog gun just first, see what it says. Fog works. Quickly see if that Nebula shower is in here. These are a lot like what we're seeing on the other thing.
Oh, I just got another hit out of this book.
Okay.
It says that in 1933, an English colonel came to the United States to represent a potential buyer for the car. He was being driven in the Dymaxion car by a famous race car driver of the time near the entrance to the Chicago World's Fair when they were involved in a car accident. Apparently, a car containing a local politician had challenged them to a race. The Dymaxion car was sideswiped, causing it to flip. The driver was killed and the colonel injured. By the time the actual cause of the accident was reported in the papers, it was too late. The Dymaxion car had already been labeled as dangerous.
Yeah.
There was a cover-up, and the politician was never acknowledged as being the cause of the wreck.
Wow. Good find. Nebula shower.
Thanks, Susan, for that one.
There's so much fun stuff out there, but just, you know, he's got stuff about this guy has just short pieces, and this one is about.
Here, let me stop the share so that your picture is. Do that again, please.
This is just a drawing.
Well,
and that's a drawing of what? His what?
His, I think, the bathroom.
Oh, that's the bathroom.
Can you show again, Susan? We can't see on the beak. Do I need to pin you?
It's what?
I mean, maybe I need to pin her because I couldn't see it. Okay, yes.
I mean, it's going to be technically.
And you both seated, right?
I'm not sure with the fog gun. I thought with the fog gun, you could kind of, it looked like it was very compact space. But I think we were looking at some other things that came out of YouTube previously about the bathroom.
Yeah. I think last week, if you guys want to get to the last week link, we did the whole thing on his modular bathroom drop-in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I think these newfangled, we're seeing new spouts, like rain effect spouts and everything like that from showers. I think these are, a lot are based on his principle, is the water under pressure and how it flows in streams. I'm looking for, I found one that was better in terms of a fog shower. So, fog shower.
This one is also a fun book and has a lot of very detailed information. The Dymaxion World of Buckminster Fuller.
Cool. Hold a little higher, a little bit higher. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Shiny. But it's got actual pictures of some of the units dropping in.
Very, very cool. Any other comments or questions? Susan, if you get another idea that jumps out at you, why share it. I think what we'll do is, would you guys like to tour a Dymaxion house? I went to Buckminster's, the fullerinstitute.org's website, and there's a whole thing on that Dymaxion house. I have this PDF file ready to send out, and here we go.
Doing some research on the internet, we just found out that the Ford Museum in Detroit has one of the remaining Dymaxion houses by Richard Buckminster Fuller, Bucky Fuller.
At Wichita, Kansas, in the very center of the United States, the housing problem brings out a circular dwelling built of aluminum and plastics. Instead of a foundation, this cornerless cottage is suspended from a central mast of stainless steel. The engineering principle, with the safety factor of a suspension bridge, permits new ideas like a revolving roof, which gives a complete change of air every 6 minutes. Using new war-developed lightweight metals and prefabrication of parts by mass production, this home of living room, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a kitchen can be economically produced. A round house may seem strange, but in a housing shortage, people are giving attention to all new ideas.
That's a museum?
Museum of cars and innovations and things. You guys can do your thing.
Don't leave the building, okay? We are at the Henry Ford Museum. Henry Ford was the builder of the modern economy, in a way, by creating the assembly line, and Ford was able to create the first mass-produced car, the Ford T. What interests us today is the Dymaxion concept. Dymaxion house, to me, what Bucky Fuller was trying to achieve was the mass production house. He wanted a Ford T for houses. It's Dymaxion house, so Dymaxion is actually a word that is created by integrating the words dynamic, maximum, and tension. Maximum tension is a concept of Bucky Fuller. He had this intuition that it was not something random, that nature would come all the time with systems that seemed to hold together, creating a superficial and a structural tension. Same concepts go with plants and with the golden ratio. There's not a coincidence that the spiral is used all over nature all the time. Bucky Fuller thought it was possible to create an aerodynamic house, achieving the most with the least. That's why the dynamic maximum tension, according to Fuller, was achieved by a shape that will remind us of different 20th century concepts that became actually mass production goods. One is the recreational vehicle, the Airstream, and the other is the origin of the Airstream, which is aircraft. The first modern aircraft that were able to, let's say, integrate modern materials. From there, metal and plastic composites became a thing. Let's remember how domes, once it's put together, it creates a tension that self-assures it's going to be solid. In this case, the skeleton, which is super light, is going to hold a lot of weight.
The central mast goes up first, and the rest of the lightweight house hangs on this pole. Interior pods and walls can be moved to change sizes of rooms.
Circumferences are very tricky for construction. There is a reason why they are not more used. It's difficult to create a layout out of a circular structure. Services and things you can't move are going to tend to be around the nucleus. So at the external parts of the circumference, we find windows, doors. As we go in, we can imagine how light is going to permeate through the structure, no matter the orientation of the sun or the season. first thing that comes to my mind when I see this, it's round and open, so it's modern house but open, and to me it's airstreamy. I see an airstream here, but I also see innovation in materials, how you put them. You see finishes on the metal side that are very similar to aircraft design. This riveting of metal, it was proved and tested in aircraft. Then another thing, despite the fact that the house is round, the interior is quite conventional and cozy. It's not overly futuristic, so it could be used by any conventional family in the 50s, 60s. So first thing that comes to my mind is that the living room is quite spacious. Then another thing I see is that the center of the structure appears to be open. Those vents create a wind tunnel that are going to ventilate the whole house. Okay, so now we're in. So there is a balcony that creates a flow, like living structures with a circular shape related to the golden ratio and the Fibonacci number, the spiral, which is some design that is used all the time in nature.
Welcome to the house of the future relative to the 1920s. So as you can see, we've got high vaulted ceilings and wide panoramic views and a great illusion of space that's bigger than really what we've got. It's only 1,017 square feet. Is it any wonder he was a veteran of World War I? He served on board a submarine vessel and decided that he wanted to draw from his experience. If you were
No, sorry.
to have bought a house like this, you would have ordered your walls from the catalog. Say you wanted all mechanized shelves, you could have that. If you wanted all rotating closet space, you could have that as well.
You have a round closet here. It's a rotating structure. It just takes advantage of the space.
So it was up to you to pick and choose and decide when and where and how big you wanted your rooms to be. He's really trying to give the power back to the people with this design idea. The cost of the house itself for a consumer was $6,500. The average mean of a house back then was $5,000. But 50% of the time it came with an outhouse. So yeah, no, that's not fun times.
Single unit bathroom is dropped in on site.
You know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about an airplane toilet. And we're talking about a very easy to clean environment. The whole bottom of the bathroom is one material. Floor and counter and shower are the same sort of composite, easy to clean fiber. Then the toilet is on one side, you have the sink on the other side, some storage, and the shower. In such a design, you are not going to be concerned about spilling water or about humidity going the rest of the house. It's like a self-contained compartment.
But it's not just these aesthetic appeals, these aesthetic values that make the house unique. We're not in just a roundhouse, we're actually off of the ground right now. The secret of the Dymaxion house lies in its central construction. Buckminster Fuller was trying to change the way we thought about structure in order to address certain things like extreme weather conditions. So we have a central mast, a network of strong pillars that are driven about 8 feet deep into a solid slab of concrete, from which you have a network of suspension cables that reach across, lattice across one another and hang onto the floor. It's in essence this high tension which holds the walls in an upright position. However, the suspension style cables, they expand and contract, and they grant this house a measure of agility that no other house has. When combined with a plexiglass exterior, now you have a house that functions like an airplane, able to withstand those drops in pressure. It can adjust its shape and change itself according to those values. That's the thing that makes the house really unique.
The central mass and the suspension.
Suspension cables, because that's what makes the house a Dymaxion house. It also allows it to be broken down, put on board a flatbed truck, and driven to the next location. As you look at the floor, you're going to notice that there are these slats. They fold up like an accordion. So it would actually fold up and you could lay it back out. And so it was designed to be entirely mobile.
Open kitchen, same floor as in the rest of the house, the accordion type of flooring. As in Cité Radios Le Corbusier in Marseille, the whole counter is metal, easy to clean, easy to maintain. The kitchen is integrated, so it's super sleek.
All in one kitchen, right?
All in one kitchen that would include refrigerated drawers and shelves. So as in the restaurant industry these days, cabinets that are refrigerated are just common. In the 50s of the 20th century, they were not. We are talking about the beginning of industrial scale commercial appliances. And then you go to the living room and space. First thing you notice space. We're talking about the circumference is probably 1/3 of the cake is living room. I like the fact that, let's say, the separation between kitchen and the living room, it doesn't go all the way.
Air circulates through the house every 6 minutes. At the very top of the mast, you have a flue that opens, drawing hot air up and out, and ventilation panels drop to draw cool air in. Just by having these panels open, it's going to draw air all the way through, up through the central mast. It's going to rotate around, so you're going to have a churning effect because you have a flue at the very top. Just by atmospheric difference alone, it's going to form a vacuum to draw air up and out. Buckminster Fuller was a fan of the environment. In fact, he thought it was our imperative duty to take care of the earth as much as possible. He thought of this even in the 1900s, right? So rainwater, if you look at the roofing slats, you're going to notice some rib-like features here. From the outside of the house, the roofing slats are separated, allowing for a gap of space to allow rainwater to come inside. Buckminster Fuller's unique ventilation system would allow for a indoor rain gutter system to collect rainwater from the outside, and the foil layers would collect our condensation in order to redirect that extra moisture into a PVC pipe, and that would lead to the base of the house in a holding tank. And here we are in almost 2020, just now embarking on those ideas. Now keep in mind, this house was designed from materials that were available in the 1940s. We have many more materials available now. We have carbon fiber, we've got fiberglass.
So it's plastic.
Plexiglass. And you notice the riveting? This is how they constructed the airplanes.
First thing we thought when we came, it looks like an Airstream, but the Airstream is also for the moment, right? So it's all connected.
It is. I mean, so the Airstream was one. Buckminster Fuller also designed a Dymaxion car with the same high tension holding the car together because he wanted to be able to break it apart. It was really liked this structure of high tension cable wires and the lattice structure. He went on to design the geodesic dome and learned a lot about the way that particles form in nature and cellular structure. And now come to find out the C60 carbon atom is following that intuition by which he designed.
This is a concept of tensegrity. This shape connected to these Euclidean forms here is going to create a tension that is going to keep it together. Buckminster Fuller was very interested in how nature seems to be very aware of the best designs. Concepts such as tensegrity that just would evolve into geodesic domes. The Dymaxion concept comes from a moment where mass production was turning from World War II forward into commercial products. We're talking about the beginning of commercial flights. Aircrafts from that moment resemble Airstreams. You see the riveted metal structure and you see how aerodynamics just help keep them in the air, So the wind tunnel effect is very important for an airplane. Bucky Fuller thought it was also important for a house who has to sustain a family during extreme weather conditions. In this same place, we can also see, here's a camper van. So Bucky Fuller's Dymaxion precedes this Volkswagen camper, the iconic house on wheels. So this is a 1959 Volkswagen Westfalia, the original Westie. Previous to having a more refined version of house on wheels, you had a camping, more Spartan tent, in this case from the 20s. We're talking about a tarp on top of a metal structure on wheels to be towed. This idea, it's very modern, the idea to go back to the woods and try to just reconnect with something that in modern life you've lost because you're living in urban environments. And here, the origin of modern recreational vehicles, again, we're talking about the wind tunnel, the same materials, riveted, stainless steel. Those things were conceived to be towed, not to fly, but we sort of see a same, building expertise being diverted into another. So we are talking about in the 30s, during the recession, but it's fascinating how Bucky Fuller was trying to utilize all the mass production materials and techniques available at the moment and that needed to be either reconverted or closed down, for he wanted to use all that momentum and keep going with it and just reinvent housing. I'd like to see how this could work on a system of houses as a neighborhood. Could be almost like a molecular structure, like very organic, like drops of mercury. And they come together, they separate very easily. Nature would understand a neighborhood that is created with drops of water. If you wanted to create something cheap, mass-produced, that could harvest rain, easy to clean, easy to move, aerodynamic, that could stand extreme weather phenomena, that was the prefab of that moment.
It has tested to withstand high winds of up to 120 miles per hour, single-planed plexi. The thing is the bankers like traditional windows. So what would have traditional windows done to a house like this? Well, I don't think that it would have been able to stand that, Category 1 tornado. Who knows where we would be today if this house had gone into production. I do believe that Buckminster Fuller was looking toward potential tornado, flood, and hurricane adaptive housing. But unfortunately, the bankers just did not feel confident enough with the design to push it forward. Some people think that this is a failure. I don't think this is a failure at all. 120 miles per hour success? Yeah, that's success in extreme weather conditions,
It's interesting that the system's thinking, everything makes more sense now. You're talking about extreme weather, which is some patterns are coming harder and harder. We're talking about materials that could be used in industrial scale. We're talking about prefab. A lot of things are ideas that are just now floating, and somebody could probably come and grasp some of them.
Okay. Comments or questions? I just thought that was a cool video and worth the time.
Welcome to my channel.
Sorry.
That Fair Companies, their collection on YouTube, that is my absolute favorite nighttime thing to watch. They go every place in the world with their kids, and they look at dwellings and how people live and how they integrate with the ecology around them. And I can't believe I missed the actual Bucky one.
Oh, cool. Really cool. Go ahead, Manu.
My comment onto this is actually three things that came towards the end and mid of a presentation. And the girl said, who knows where we'd be today if these went into production? That was one thing. And the guy who was videoing, he said, systems thinking. And then the recurrence of the golden ratio and the Fibonacci in the vocabulary that they use during this video. Those are things that stood out for me.
Cool. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I have PDF files on the Dymaxion house that we just watched with the link to that video and a couple of pictures. And I have also the Dymaxion car with the links to those and other things. So, that'll be going out in this week's email message. One thing, did we last week cover What One Man Can Do? The song by John Denver? We've talked about it a couple times. Did we actually play the song?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I have a video. I have a sheet on that too. And I want to share this with you. And maybe some of you old timers have seen this. I hadn't seen it before. Have you guys seen the link to WinStar Tribute to Buckminster Fuller program in Aspen, Colorado, hosted by John Denver? Have you guys seen that? This is absolutely amazing. I keep getting his name mixed up. The guy, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is his name Kiyosaki? He actually speaks on this thing and talks about having met Buckminster Fuller and the change that he made in his life. Plus, there's a whole bunch of cool people who talk about different aspects of Buckminster Fuller's life. This is really powerful. Great little interviews with him and everything. And then I got two links to different versions of the song. Here's one up here and here's one down here. This is John Denver on the Mike Douglas show. And then this little thing, which I think is really cool to read. This is a excerpt from the foreword of the Grunch, which I found that I thought was appropriate. And maybe we could like read through this. You guys will remember reading this, but I think it'd be to read it in the context of John Denver's tribute to Buckminster Fuller after he passed. So Joe is driving. Mano, do you want to read?
Yeah, I can read.
Yeah, please.
Okay, except from the foreword of Grunch of Giants. Equally important, I said about 55 years ago, 1927, to see what a penniless, unknown human individual with a dependent wife and newborn child might be able to do effectively on behalf of all humanity in realistically developing such an alternative program. Being human, I made all the mistakes there were to be made, but I learned to learn by realistic recognition of the constituent facts of the mistake making and attempted to understand what the uncovered truths were trying to teach me. 1991, John Denver, Winstar tribute to Buckminster Fuller. In the archival video from 1991, featuring Roland Smith, John Denver, Tom Coombe, and many others who were touched by Bucky Fuller's teaching and presence, speak eloquently about their experiences. If you ever knew what Bucky did or how he affected everyone involved with Winstar and beyond, it will make it very clear. On his 85th birthday, he was out at Winstar Project in Colorado, and I wrote a song for him, which I'm going to sing for you a little later on. Bucky passed away. I was honored to be asked to sing at the gathering to celebrate his life. I say in the song, and I waited to say to you that it was everything that I aspired to be, the man, that he was a child that he was, the friend that he was, the gift that he was, the grandfather of the future. What a privilege to have known him.
Yeah, beautiful. So John Denver wrote this song and sang it at his 85th birthday, and then sang it here again to honor him in this thing. And if you haven't seen this video lasts for like an hour and a half, but it's really cool because Kiyosaki and all sorts of this Tom Crum dude. A lot of people talk about how Buckminster Fuller changed their lives. So I thought that was pretty cool. I put that together after lesson. So I'm going to send that out in the weekend as well. Any comments or questions on that? Okay, so let's oops, just happened. Okay, good. Here we go. So I think we've actually gone through all of these things. We talked about, I found an article on the Octet Truss as well, but the fog gun, I know I had some things on the fog gun. This really gripes me. Let me do a quick little search for fog gun. I think I tried this, but and name fog gun. Yeah, I'm not finding it. So that's it. If there are no other comments or questions, we'll just continue to read, I think.
One question: is the fog gun the same concept that you have in the cleaning of toilets on board aircraft?
I don't know. In the cleaning of toilets, I don't know.
You know, when you use a toilet in many of the aircrafts now, you no more flush water. It's just a big pressure sucking. And it looks very clean.
Yeah. I'm really jerked because I know I found let me do a quick Google on let me see if we go Fuller Buckminster Fuller fog gun, because I didn't do that. And I think I found something on the Buckminster Fuller Institute site. Here is, okay, there we go, fog gun. This is more like his modular bathroom. But he was actually convinced that, let's see what this says.
Mist shower.
It's what?
It says mist showers.
Yeah. I'm sure I found, this is real frustrating to me because I thought I was really super prepared tonight. And if we go to Buckminster Fuller and we go to all instead of just images, the fog gun device is used by jet compressed air mixed with a small amount of finely atomized water. Maybe this was it. The fog gun. I was looking for some pictures.
No,
but
it said something about the beach aircraft.
Yeah, if he's a finer spray. So the idea was that, if I remember right, he was convinced, and it worked, that, okay, here's Buckminster Fuller Institute about the fog gun. Okay. Well, so if you're interested, I was real impressed with the fog gun, and I'm really, like Susan talked about, these are ways to actually save water, and we can do these things now. And, if I could have a complete shower and feel clean, wash my hair and use a cup of water instead of multiple gallons of water, that would be the way I would prefer to do it anyway. So
I don't have a dishwasher, mechanized dishwasher. And
say again, Susan, you're kind of away from your microphone.
So I don't have a mechanized dishwasher in this house, but I feel bad about it because it would use a lot less water to get the dishes clean. Washing them by hand. So if I could have a fog gun and just shoot my dishes, I would love it.
Cool. Okay, well, any other comments or questions? Cool. Joe, when do you think you're going to be glad
I'll
you're
probably be about 10 minutes. I'll have to drop off for 1 minute.
Okay.
Switch over, but that's okay. But as I switch to my computer, but I should be there in 4 minutes.
Okay.
Drive safe.
Yeah. That's it. I could have logged in a little earlier, actually, but it was kind of crazy where I was pulling out of. So
yeah. So I've kind of exhausted my ideas of going back to, because we go so fast with this stuff. I always feel gypped. I hope you've enjoyed the detours as much as I have. My family still jokes with me that when we were in Europe, we could have gone into Bavaria and seen the largest beer barrel in the world. And I really wanted to go see that thing, and my family just protested. I'm the guy who wants to go see all the details. So thank you for traveling along with me now as we do this. So now we can approach back to the book. We're at chapter 3. in chapter 1, he talks about the heist. And then in chapter 2, he talks about the asteroids David's sling. We read through that last year. And then we ended up last year where we had chapter 3 to begin. And I think there it is right there. Heads or tails? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Oh, no wonder you're having a great experience. I was going through each of the chapters and showing the chapters here, but here we are in chapter 3, heads or tails, and probably we should pick up from there, so that we're not redundant from last time.
Okay, heads or all right. Should I read?
Yeah, if you'd like to, go ahead.
Okay, heads or tail, we win. Incorporated. Corporations are neither physical nor metaphysical phenomena. They are socio-economic ploys, legally enacted game playing, agreed upon only between overwhelmingly powerful socio-economic individuals and by them imposed upon human society, and it's all unwitting members.
Let's pause right there. Do you think he was telling us the way he really felt? I mean, wow, legally enacted game playing, unwittingly upon the human society, right? Wow. Okay, you want to continue, Manu?
Yeah, it said unwittingly.
Yeah.
That is, we're not even aware that it's going on.
That's right. Okay. We're not aware of all the dumb games that people are playing with us, yeah.
How can little humans successfully cope with this greatest of all history's invisible grunch of non-human giants? First of all, we humans must comprehend the giants' game and game playing equipment, rules, and scoring systems. But before we can comprehend their game playing, we must study the history and development of giants themselves.
Aha. Let's pause there for a second. Got it? Comments, questions?
I keep hearing Mitt Romney say corporations are people too.
Boy.
And I just think that, yeah, it is the device that is used to spread liability and to take from the individuals.
Yeah. Mitt Romney is a senator from Utah, that you would bring that up.
I know.
And of course, he's a Republican senator from Utah. And I've always felt like he was, I mean, if you look at his business, how he made his millions of dollars, it was by reverse merging and hostile takeovers of companies, which he then liquidate the assets and bankrupt the company and take all the money.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe it. And then I didn't like the guy until finally he's one of the few Republicans that stood up against Trump. And, that's suddenly he's not such a bad Republican anymore. So, but boy, I agree with you over and over. I hear that all the time. Well, corporations are people. We all know that, he said. We all know corporations are people. That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
They have rights they have more rights than individuals.
Oh,
I think that what he's saying here, one thing that he's saying is start with a macro. And it has an incidence in education. I think what I call an incidence in education is that time that you spend in education studying history should take a better place than what it is today. We don't study enough history because that's the only way we learn. History is recorded. And when we critically look at it and review it and inject into it what we know or a variety of things around, that's when we start understanding what went on at large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, are you complete?
Yes.
I'm going to go on a little rant here. I think there's a guy named Tom Anderson. I think his last name is Anderson. Anyway, he's one of these independent press guys who came up in America over the last few years and has slowly gotten lost with the advent of YouTube and all this tribal manifestation of opinions everywhere. But Tom pointed out that when America first was founded, that the American Revolution was not against the British Crown, it was against British corporations. And that and it was against the East India Tea Company, because they'd created a law saying that the colonists couldn't drink their own tea, they had to drink East India tea. And that's what the Boston Tea Party was all about. And so he documented that the American Revolution wasn't against the Crown, it was against British corporations and their monopolies. And for the first 100 years in America or longer, there were no corporations. There was no legality of corporate law. And he pointed out, and so I hope I'm remembering it correctly, that the first corporations in America were built, came about under about the time of the automobile, and they started building roads and bridges. And at that time, they needed to pool resources in order to get bridges built. So they created corporations that were supposed to die in 99 years. They had to die because they were afraid. The founding fathers were afraid that if you had a corporation and started accruing wealth, it'd be just like what happened in Britain, where the British Crown was being run by the corporations, and the corporations led the imperialism. You know, it was America did the same thing with the banana industry. I mean, you know, and spread globally. American imperialism just uprooted democracies and did all sorts of things just for corporate profitability. And I love this line. First of all, we humans must comprehend the Giants' games and game-playing equipment, rules, and scoring systems. I think that's a profound invitation right there. Okay, you want to continue reading, Manu?
Yes. One of my many years ago friends, long since deceased, was a giant, a member of the Morgan family. He said to me, Bucky, I'm very fond of you. So I'm very sorry. No, I'm sorry to have to tell you that you will never be a success. You go around explaining in simple terms that which people have not been comprehending, when the first law of success is never make things simple when you can make them complicated. Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, this is where Nikola Tesla died penniless, because he was absolutely committed to the idea of giving free power to the world. And of course, everybody was trying to monopolize it and in order to make a profit. And the US government came in and confiscated, at his death, confiscated all of his stuff. Some of it has gone back to his homeland. I'm having trouble remembering where that is right now. Yeah, Serbia. I knew you'd remember that, Susan. But there's still secrets that, you know, secrets of free power. And by the way, there's a new movie coming out called Oppenheimer.
Oh, that's right.
And it's all about, because Oppenheimer was I think he was the head of the Manhattan Project, developed the atom bomb. And then later he lost his security because he was really jerked. When he went in to do that atom bomb, it was about giving free power to the world. And when he found out it was about a bomb, he became really resistant. And do you know that before the project was over, the US government took away his top secret status and took him off the project. So let's hope that movie kind of reveals, it seems like anytime somebody is concerned about helping the masses and using technology to make the world a better place, they somehow get ostracized, as Bucky discusses now. Do you want to continue reading, Manu?
Yes. Yes. So despite his well-meaning advice, here I go explaining giants. In addition to the BC David and Goliath theme, we have the AD 800 story of Roland, filled Roland, legendary son of Charlemagne's sister, Giros.
Okay, so he's saying here, in addition to the BC, the Old Testament story of David and Goliath, that's what he's talking about, right?
Yeah.
We now have an 800 AD story of Charlemagne's sister, Gillis. So anyway, there we go. Go ahead, Manu.
There are many poetical chronicles of young Roland's infancies, a very young person's heroic exploits, such as vanquishing giants, one named Ferragus and another Eumont. From the 8th to the 17th century, many variations of the story occur, published in Latin, Italian, French, and English. Much esteemed in Italy, Roland was known as Orlando Furioso. The order of the name, first two letters is reversed for Ro to Or, as immortalized in AD 1502 poem by Ludovico Ariosto.
Okay, so he's saying that Roland's name was changed to Orlando. So there's Roland and here's Orlando. Because I didn't get it reading it, but as you read it, I can connect the two. Go ahead, Manu.
Okay. Much esteemed in Italy, Roland was known. Let's continue. The first comprehensive chronicle of Roland was written in Latin by Turpin, Archbishop of Reims, before AD 800. Roland or Orlando is mentioned by Dante in his Paradiso and is the subject of songs sung at the Battle of Hastings in the chanson of the Roland. See AD 1100. Shakespeare mentions him in King Lear. With the advent of radio and television, the children's Mother Goose type storybooks of yesterday have been progressively abandoned. Few people today are familiar with the 1,000-year-old story of the roaring of a giant as Roland approached his tower. Fee, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. Supreme horse mounted monarch in the days of Roland Court and did award vast hunting and farming land to the horse-mounted blood king and military henchmen, who together hunted the lands and had them cultivated by on foot, tithe-paying tenant farmers. Wow. In ancient North China, a new kind of giant had developed long before Roland's time, a three-component part giant, i.e., the little man with a club mounted on a horse, who could and did overwhelm the big on foot, tribe-leading shepherd. This new composite giant, the horse-mounted bully, could divert to his sole advantage as much as he wanted of the life support productivity of the on-foot peasantry. PAYS equal land, paid. PED equal foot, equal PED, ant, and equal PAYS, entry, equal peasantry, equal combination of the land and on foot, equal PAY of land, pay of land, equal PA of patriots and PA of pagans, equal patois, equal pagans, equal pagan peasantry. Wow.
Yeah, I think he's trying to give us the etymology of the word peasantry there. And he's trying to show us how peasantry related to people on foot you know, who did the land. This is the on-foot tribe-leading shepherd, you know, and so
yes. And people dominated.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
So and also here, you know, it reminds me of Susan's type 1 evolution. As soon as there is an invention, as a horse mounted, you arm yourself with a club and you subject the other people.
Yeah.
In order to extract rent from them. Okay. Can I continue?
Yeah, please. Everybody ready? Everybody ready for it to continue? Go ahead, Manu.
Okay, the horse-mounted, club-wielding bully asserted, as do the 20th century racketeers, that he owned the land on which the shepherds were grazing their sheep or the farmers were growing their crops. There was no way in which the shepherd could realistically contradict the bully. Each night, many of the shepherd's sheep disappeared until the shepherd agreed to accept the horse-mounted bully's protection. This was the origin of property. The most powerful amongst the leaders of gangs of horsemen became the emperor.
Wow.
The emperor rewarded his henchmen with deeds to the land in proportion to the deeds at arms they performed for him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the history of feudalism in Europe.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Here, you know, if you want to see this in action, go to clubs, nightclubs.
Yeah.
That always protect us. You see the bouncers at the door, right?
Yeah.
And then even when you have small shops in places,
yeah,
there's always guys coming, threatening the shop owner, independent shop owner,
yeah,
until they agree for protection. And protection is against them paying him a tithe or something like that.
That's right. So this whole idea of protection, the protection racket, was what preceded the idea of police. And the idea of police was community-funded protection. And sometimes it gets close and sometimes it doesn't. Any other comments or questions? He's kind of giving us a history of how these giants got started. Oops.
There is no historical record of religion founders who have been so bold as to assert that God had deeded land to anyone. History shows that religious leaders have, however, frequently complied with their king's instructions to plant a cross or other symbol of God's approval of their king's sword, accomplish vast lands seizure and ownership claiming.
Yeah, this is called the divine right of kings. It came out of European philosophy, the divine right of kings, and it spread over into America with the principle of the divine right of kings was the manifest destiny. It converted the divine right of kings, brought the Europeans to America. Americans rebelled, created their own country here, the United States of America, but then that concept was translated into manifest destiny, which gave the white Americans the right to siege and commit genocide against the Aborigines to expand across the continent. So this is that idea of sword accomplished land seizures and ownership claiming, you know. Okay, cool. Continue.
Over 30,000 years ago, these prehistoric horse-mounted landowners began expanding their territory northwardly and westwardly beyond the Himalayas into Mongolia and then ever westward into Europe. Also starting at least 30,000 years ago, South Pacific Islanders and South and Northeast continental Asians came to the west coast of North, Central, and South America from the Orient by rafts swept along the Japan current. Many if not most of the rafted Southeast Asians colonized the west coast of the Americas and islands of the East Pacific. The current then returned some of rafters to Southeast Asia as Thor Heyerdahl demonstrated with his raft
Excuse me?
Kontiki.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the movie?
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Kontiki?
No.
Came out in the 70s or 80s. It was a big deal. And by the way, the Book of Mormon's all about people who left the Middle East and came on a raft from the Middle East and landed in South America. And that's the whole story of the Book of Mormon, is the migration of those people. There's also another story in the Book of Mormon about the migration of people along the Yellow River and then up into the Aleutian Islands and over across. And, you know, this was in 2000 BC after the Tower of Babel, and the story of the migration across the Aleutian Islands and round from North America down. So the Book of Mormon talks about North America down and South America up.
Yeah. But this writing of Bucky, when I read it, is a little bit, is not complete.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you look at all the discoveries of the past 30 years to 50 years, you know, of the origin of humans and how they travel, is Africa is.
Yeah. I want to
Africa is enough through the Rift Valley.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just listened to a report. A guy just came back from the Congo and they're talking about these precious metals that are used in electric cars. The biggest source of that precious metal, it's not lithium, it's something else.
Yeah, it's something else. That was the inspiration for the movie Black Panthers.
And right now the Congo is being run by militia groups who are basically enslaving those people, having them work in those mines without masks, in a completely dusty environment, women who are raped and then carry children on their back to work to gather up these ores and give them to these mobsters who then run them through 3 or 4 brokers to get to these major houses, so that everybody who builds an electric car can say they're buying from a legitimate source. But there's no way to prove that. And so this big trend towards electric cars is creating all sorts of exploitation. And the Chinese were the ones who came down in and funded most of that stuff. So most of these precious metal mines in the Congo are actually owned by the Chinese, who gave land development funds for roads and schools to these different African country governments for the right to take their minerals. And it's just piled on top of them backwards. I have a link to that. It was in Fresh Air, I think. The guy wrote a book on it. And he wanted to write the book about the exploitation of these poor people without confronting the governments, because he was afraid that if he confronted the governments before he published the book, they would pay him or do things to him to quiet the information. He actually went undercover for 3 or 4 years there and risked his life, almost died, collecting stories from these people who've been exploited by these people on horses with clubs.
Yeah.
You know?
It's called, the mineral is called coltan.
It's called what, Manu?
Coltan, C-O-L-T-A-N.
T-O-L-T-A-N.
And the DRC is almost the only place where you find that mineral. Is essential for the batteries of you know, solar, mobile phone, all this, you know, electric cars, and all this.
And these people are just slaves, and they go to work for $1 a day under an absolutely horrendous environment. You want to go ahead and read, Manu?
Yes.
I think we're right here.
Also started, where is it? Okay. This circum-Pacific overland of the Japan current, raft travel outline the Polynesian world, within which was spoken a commonly based language. the Polynesians became the world water people. Polynesia comprised more than 1/4 of the planet Earth. The great West Coast mountain ranges and deserts slowed both the North and South American coastal rough-landed colonists' eastward migration. Landed at many North and South American coastal points from Alaska to Chile, these rough-landed Polynesians separated into many groups as they moved eastward over many routes to both North and South America to become known as the American Indians. As water people, the Indian assume that the Great Spirit, not anthropomorphic God, gave them fishing, hunting, and cultivating rights, but never ownership of the land. Obviously, to them, only the Great Spirit could own the land. Centuries later, the Indian thought they were selling the European only fishing and hunting licenses, not property rights. These were water people. No sailor can think realistically of owning a specific area of ever-transforming oceanic waters. Many pirates tried vainly to do so.
Yeah.
We have historically two prime oppositely directed war encirclings, both starting about 30,000 years ago. One, from Orient via water, eastbound from Southeast Asia, and two, westbound via land from Northeast Asia. Mastering of all the sea finally went to one land-based nation after another.
Right on.
Millennia after the first club swinging Oriental horsemen claimed land ownership, the man on the horse westbound from Orient to Europe became helmeted. Where is it again?
I'm sorry. My cursor is being very erratic. I even rebooted my computer before this. There we go.
Can you, yes, up again a little bit? Millennia after the first club swinging Oriental horsemen claimed land ownership, the man on the horse westbound from the Orient to Europe became helmeted and armored in metal. Due to the horse's weight carrying limit and the penalty of weight on the horse's speed, the most effective of the horse and armored riders was, like the present-day jockey, the wiry, strong little man. Inspection of European museums, armor discloses the diminutive size of the most successful knights. Wow. The main significance of what we are learning is that to the man on foot, the horse-mounted and armed men became the new formidable giant. Because the armored knight required many helping hands to mount him and maintain his horses and arms, he had to have their goodwill and support, lest his helpers overwhelm him when dismounted and encased in his armor. As a consequence, the little wiry man in horse mounted, armor frequently became the champion of traveling bands of the little people. The little armored knight was more maneuverably effective than the armored giant when the latter multifolded weight of a burden is mounted. As a special consequence of this trending, we have the non-gigantic, successfully armored King Arthur's round table knight, who used the mounted and armed might to rectify wrongs wrought against people by local bullies and clumsily armored horse-mounted landowners.
Let's pause right there, and we'll mark that to be picked up for next week. We're approaching the end. It's interesting. I had an amazing epiphany this last week about King Arthur and Merlin, who is supposedly his tutor. And here I am reading that. This is like so much synchronicity. Okay, and there's some comments in the chat that I have not seen. Joe, you posted something there. Oh, about the, you want to explain what that
One was just about the metal that actually that is used for batteries, the coltan. The second one was actually just the movie Kon-Tiki.
Cool.
Just they're almost for myself more than everyone because everybody else is pretty much Manu's well aware of Colton and everybody else is aware of the movie. So
I have I think it was on Fresh Air. If you guys want to do a Google search, maybe I'll find that and put it in there, but it talks about the exploitation in the Congo and other areas around there. And how the Chinese came in and bought the mining operations and did it way before the Westerners got the idea. The Chinese were way ahead of this. So, and how those bands of AK-47 militia people are basically running the economy. Crazy. Okay. And let's see, here we go as we go away. Ann, how are you feeling? And what's your takeaway tonight? Can't hear you.
You're muted. And you're muted.
Sorry. Okay. I think I've got quite a bit to share here. One of them is that, we talked about, first of all, we humans must comprehend the Giants games and game playing equipment, the rules and scoring systems. I think I'm going to use this to look into how to adjust the education system the way it is. So I'm going to look for those rules and scoring systems that these giants play. So fantastic. Thank you very much for that. It gives me a starting point. The fog gun thingy, I'm going to talk to my students about looking at how to look into using that for new way, to use them in new ways and see what they come up with. So I'm going to task that to my teachers. And I just want to share with you, this is on my phone, so I can't share it into our group chat. There is an article online that says Buck to the Future, and it's about Buckminster Fuller. So because it talks about the old mill town of Winooski in Vermont, they were actually looking at doing a geodesic dome over the whole town because their I think bill for heating was $4 million back in 1979, which is equivalent to about 13 million. And I think this was written, okay, I don't have the date here, in today's money and so on. So they wanted to build a dome over the city. Now, when I saw this article, and they were basing it on Buckminster Fuller's concept, right? Now, the thing is, right now, our school is, very soon, we're going to have quite a bit of connection with the Eden project in the south of, no, it's going to be the one in the north. I think I mentioned that before, the Eden project, yeah, in our group. So I checked into the Eden project. That's one of the biggest projects that has actually used Buckminster Fuller's idea of the geodesic dome. Are you familiar with the Eden project?
No.
They in 1990 something, they literally, it's 20 years now, they built a dome and they brought in, they kept what is inside, like the green vegetation, everything. If I'm not wrong, they're replicating something that's pretty tropical in there. And to date, what I understand is that the number of foot traffic that has gone through the Eden project and also the businesses that have come up with its solutions and environmental ideas that have come up from it have generated £1 billion over the past 20 years. And they are opening, they have already made, the announcement came out that they're building one in the northern part of London in Morecambe Bay. Okay, so if you want to check that out, by all means, and we're going to get our students connected to the project. We've gotten in with the people one of the professors who deal directly with them. So we're very excited about this. So okay, hold on, let me see. I was checking in, and because I was keying in Eden project, Bucky Fuller, I wanted to see if the Eden project was based off Bucky Fuller's, geodesic dome. And it is. The Eden project built a rainforest ecosystem inside Buckminster Fuller's, Okay. So but inside Buckminster Fuller inspired geodesic dome. Okay. So in case you want to check that out. Okay. That's what I have to share. And Manu, how do you feel and what is your takeaway today?
I really feel emotional and sad. Because two things have been mentioned here that make me very sad. On the Congo. Does anybody remember the two bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Yes.
Do you know where the uranium came from? From the Congo.
Wow.
Does anybody remember Dag Hammarskjöld? Do you remember Dag Hammarskjöld? See? He was Secretary General of the UN in 1960. What happened to him? His plane disappeared in the Congo because he took some positions. Now again, you know, courting, and there's enslaving of children in the Congo. The Congo is a country the size 1/3 of the US. That's how big it is. And it's a tragedy. It has some of the most important minerals and waterways. If you hear about the Congo River is only second to the Amazon, only second to the Amazon in the world. In terms of its drainage, in actual fact, is the twin of the Amazon. Because when the Amazon, when the South America split from Africa, those two rivers, you know, there was a, you know, it split according to a rift, right? And the two rivers, actual fact, you know, the Amazon flows from the Andes towards the Atlantic, and the Congo flows from the East African highlands to the Atlantic. Same story today. And really, this is really, is very sad of what is happening to Africa. And it's happening like this because we're not thinking globally. You know, the horseman, the little horseman, is still kind of doing the same thing. Now, on a more positive note, what I take out here is that it is so powerful to teach history, or for people to be interested into history. And I remember Joe mentioning, what's the name? Ray Dalio.
Yes.
The trains, and Buckminster Fuller was a keen student of history because his train comes from history. So Ray Dalio goes back 500 years, 1,000 years to study what happens with money.
Right.
And the cycle of debt. And from there, he's able to extract some trends. I don't know if his trends are going to come as predictive, powerfully, but he's made them, he's come out to lay, you know, kind of what he sees. And that is pretty scary. So what I'm taking from that is that education-wise, it is important that we know history. We study history, not from an ideological point of view, but from the surgeon's point of view, from an audit point of view, to try to understand what were the forces at play during that history and what did they move. And that's when we have the chance of having this macro approach that we're talking about, and then we can pin micro-wise more precisely more powerful. That's what I take away. Otherwise, I'm grateful that we can meet and discuss this thing. And I'm thankful for you all, giving the best you have in this exchange and the friendship and the love. So Joe, how do you feel? What do you take away?
I feel blessed to be here. I'm fortunate, and thank you everyone for coming. I apologize for being late. For me, what I'm taking away is, you had some discussions of corporations and the idea of the horsemen, and the horsemen still exist, as you mentioned, Manu. You took the words right out of my mouth. They just don't ride on horses. They do it in other ways, and they exploit countries, resources, lands. And I think that this is true. What we're seeing here is the history of exploitation. When we were going through those paragraphs, I thought of the ascent of man, and they talk about almost how this all actually, there was a series, the name is escaping me. I think it's Jacob Bernaus. I forget the last name. Where he talks about how civilizations had started and people started to started to cultivate the land, and how wars started essentially, and it was very similar to what we're reading. My takeaway is that it's just that understanding history and understanding human nature, and having context as to how these things evolve is really it's important. My other major takeaway is something that Steve was talking about with just the bullying aspect of it with Nikola Tesla. And if you think about it, that was like an example of modern day bullying, specifically in the idea that essentially Morgan and Edison just came in and bullied Westinghouse and Tesla after they had won the Niagara Falls contract. And they just did it with not necessarily the best technology. They didn't have the best technology. They just did it with different types of tools, modern finance. And basically they couldn't afford to stay in business with the lawsuits that they were going to be filing. And so what we see is just, and a lot of exploitation that we need to be aware of. And I think that this is an education, as Manu had said earlier, of how people exploit each other. And that is a little depressing, but it's also, on a positive note, it's very reassuring that there are people here learning, and forming the next generation, and we're here this evening. So I'm grateful for that. So that's my takeaway. And I appreciate everybody again being here. Steve, how do you feel, and what are you taking away?
Well, I'll tell you, Joe, I'm really sad that you came in late, because the first part of our call tonight was all about the Dymaxion house and the Dymaxion car, and we were having so much fun. We were talking about these different inventions that Bucky, rather than try to get them in place, because he developed his house, and it was supposed to be cheaper than current construction. People even were anxious to fund it, but are anxious to build them, but no banks would fund it. And he realized that it would take him 50 years for the industry to catch up with his ideas. So rather than complete any idea, he just persistently went on developing prototypes of ideas in order to brainstorm. And so that the first half of the call was really wonderful. I did find the article was with Fresh Air, and it was about cobalt. And I put pictures in, and I put a link into the chat to listen to the story. This guy's written a book and talking about how he went undercover and was nearly killed by these militia people as he was doing what he could to investigate and interview victims of this exploitation. It's really, it burns me up. You know, Susan talked earlier about Romney saying that corporations are people. You know, and there's a guy named Santos in New York on Long Island who ran a political campaign and to become in our House of Representatives in our federal government. And it was a complete farce, a complete lie. He's been discovered, and everything was a lie. I mean, he exaggerated everything. And yet the US Congress is not pushing him out. They're keeping him in there just to maintain control of the House of Representatives. They're afraid what happened if they went back into election, let that guy out. You know, these corporations are going to keep running things until you and I learn how the rules of the game and the games they play. And you and I, Western, you know, and I think this is true for everybody around the world, but especially for US citizens, it's really time that we put our foot down and just demand integrity. But you know, in America, there's this brass ring mentality. You know, I was part of this for years. I've kind of changed, and I'm in a different stage of my life. I won't go into some of the personal details of it, but this idea in America is that, well, I'm gonna go ahead and put up with all this injustice because I've got a chance at that brass ring, and I'm going to capture that brass ring, and then I'm going to make $1 million, and then I'm going to help people. That is such a big freaking lie. And I think that there's hope for the world. And I think, Anne, I'm not just saying this. The hope is that young people just take control because they build their own economies in their own tribes in their own local areas. I mean, honestly, what you're doing with school is the hope, I think, of the world. And it's happening right now with these YouTuber guys and these gamers. These guys sit around in a virtual reality. They come out and have lunch and then go back in for 12 hours. They're making money off these virtual reality games. There's a whole, you know, real life is passing them by, but there's hope there. Because if enough young people just start their own movements and build their own tribes and build their own economies, but then learn the rules that the giants play and don't play those rules. They learn to play for the betterment and the enhancement of all concerned. This is a value that human beings have got to come to, because if we don't come to it, these corporations are just going to strangle us out. And we're seeing examples of, I mean, food supplies are in short demand. Inflation is going up just because of supply chain issues. This war in Ukraine has created already an acute fuel supply issues. The war in Ukraine has complicated that. I'll tell you, it's happening on both ends. You've got Anne over here and us in this call, you know, creating our foundations and affecting our little universes. But man, it's chaos out there, and the system has got to become so heavy that it's got to bring itself down. And citizens in America have got to wake up, and we got to start voting for people who will make a difference. And it's very hard to tell who that is. And I'll just go for another rant. Back 25, 30 years ago, we had two senators who they got elected. There was a guy named Senator Garn and a guy named Senator Hatch. And these guys got elected Utah senators. They were going to be the freshman senators that were going to change the world. And here's what happened. Garn did one term and saw it was hopeless and got out. And Garn later he actually went in he did an orbit around the earth, Senator Garn did. And he was committed to the people and helping people go. Senator Hatch, on the other hand, who went in with just as much piss and vinegar, ended up collapsing into the system, became the head of the Judicial Committee of the Senate, and was part of the strong arming that went on in our country. It's amazing how the system will suck people in unless they know the game and unless they know the rules. And that's when we say, wow, that's the game they're playing and that's the rules they're playing. We're going to make a difference. Well, I'm sorry for being on my rant, everybody. It just tears up my heart to see that we're having colonialism still in Africa. It's no longer slavery. It's no longer overt ownership of another human being, but it's still economic domination and subordination, which is how America was built. You know, it was built on slavery. And our White House, our Capitol building, was built by slaves. Just amazing. Human beings are amazing, and we got to come out of that somehow. Sorry for being on the rant. The opening of the call, Joe, was really uplifting. This part is really heavy. So,
yeah, it got heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling the weight of it.
Yeah, we'll go where Bucky takes us, though.
All right,
exactly. This is a book that we should. You know, this book we must have. Everybody must have it.
Yes,
and try to procure it. Oh, you have a PDF anyway, but it is beautiful. As a Grunch of Giants. It's a small book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Until next time, my friends.
Yep. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend Manu.
Yeah, it was good.
All right.
Now I have, okay, stop the recording.
What's that? Oh, okay, hang on here.